You know, they say family is supposed to be there for you, especially when life hits rock bottom. But what if the very people you raised, the ones you sacrificed everything for, abandon you on your deathbed? They left me there, gasping for every breath, convinced I was fading away, utterly alone in my final moments. Can you even fathom that kind of betrayal? It rips your heart out, piece by agonizing piece. But then, just when the whispers of my demise had settled, when they thought I was safely out of the picture, suddenly they reappeared. Like vultures circling, drawn by the scent of what they truly valued, the will. They thought they were so clever, so calculating. They were ready to claim their inheritance. But what they didn't know was that my deathbed experience, it changed everything. They returned for the will, too late. So much more than they could ever comprehend. You are absolutely going to want to hear every single detail of this. Every single jaw-dropping moment. If you're already feeling the weight of this story, if your heart is aching for what's to come, please smash that like button right now. It tells me you're here with me, ready to hear the rest. And trust me, you'll want to subscribe to this channel because this is just the tip of the iceberg. You won't believe how this nightmare unfolds or how I managed to find my way out. Are you with me? You know, before the storm hit, before my world shattered into a million pieces, there was a different life. A life of quiet purpose, of endless giving, and of a belief so strong it felt like the bedrock beneath my very soul. My children were my everything. I poured every ounce of my being into raising them, sacrificing my own comforts, my personal desires, believing that pure, unwavering love would be returned in kind, that it would bind us forever. I mean, can you imagine? I put aside so much for them, ensuring they had every opportunity, every advantage I never did. Their laughter was my symphony, their successes my triumphs, their happiness my singular goal. I genuinely thought I was building a legacy, a family bound by unbreakable love, a fortress against the world's harshness, a place where we'd always care for each other. We had our moments, of course, those picture-perfect snapshots that filled our photo albums and my heart. Family vacations to dusty old national parks, quiet evenings spent helping with homework, school graduations where my kids were always the stars in my eyes. We'd gather around the old oak dining table, sharing stories, making plans for future holidays, convinced we were an unbreakable unit. I cooked their favorite meals, stayed up late listening to their worries, celebrated every small victory, and comforted every scraped knee. I lived for those moments, those shared smiles, those fleeting glances of affection that promised a future of warmth and connection. It was a beautiful dream, wasn't it? A life built on sacrifice and unconditional love, destined for a golden, shared old age. But even then, beneath the veneer of familial bliss, perhaps the faintest cracks were already forming, whispers of a truth I was too naive, too loving to comprehend. There were subtle shifts, small signs I dismissed as typical growing pains or the pressures of adult life. A forgotten phone call here, a hurried visit there, a growing disinterest in family gatherings that I just brushed off, always finding an excuse. I clung desperately to the belief that my children, my own flesh and blood, would always cherish the bonds we shared, that they understood the depth of my commitment. I never imagined that the very foundation I built with so much love could, one day, be systematically dismantled, brick by painful brick, not by external forces, but by the very hands I had nurtured. Oh, how wrong I was. You know, for a long time, I just made excuses. Oh, they're busy with work. Teenagers, you know how it is. They'll come around. But deep down, a cold, hard truth was starting to settle in my gut, a truth I fought with every fiber of my being. It began with missed calls, then forgotten birthdays, then holidays spent alone, watching reruns of old movies while tears silently traced paths down my cheeks. The silence in the house, once filled with laughter and warmth, grew heavy, suffocating. It wasn't just physical distance. It was an emotional chasm widening with every passing day, a void where warmth and connection used to be. My calls became desperate pleas for attention. My invitations met with mumbled excuses or outright indifference. It was like I was slowly fading from their lives, a ghost in my own home, and they didn't even notice. And then the true colors started to show, bold and stark, like a stain you can't scrub out. The conversations turned exclusively to money. "Mom, can you help with the mortgage?" "Grandma, I really need a new car." "Did you ever talk to Dad about his retirement savings?" It was relentless. Every visit, every phone call felt transactional. My worth wasn't measured in the love I gave, but in the assets I possessed. I saw the glint in their eyes, a hungry, calculating look that sent shivers down my spine. It wasn't the children I'd raised anymore. These were strangers, their faces twisted by a greed I never thought possible for my own flesh and blood. And the cruelest part, they didn't even try to hide it anymore. The masks had fallen, revealing something truly ugly beneath. My heart ached, a constant, dull throb for the children they once were, for the family we used to be. As my health started to falter, as I needed them most, that's when their true monstrous indifference truly bloomed. It wasn't a sudden storm. It was like a slow, insidious drought, drying up every last drop of compassion. The doctor's appointments I couldn't get to alone. "Oh, I'm just swamped, Mom." The simple meals I struggled to prepare. "Have you tried ordering delivery?" The loneliness, the constant pain, the fear that gripped me as my body betrayed me. It was met with deafening silence. They'd visit for 10 minutes, glance at the stack of bills on my table, make a quick excuse, and then vanish. I remember one night I fell hard. Lay there for what felt like hours, crying out, praying someone would hear. No one came. The realization hit me like a sledgehammer. In their eyes, I was no longer a mother, a person. I was merely a burden, a ticking clock. And they were just waiting for it to stop. The hospital room was sterile, cold, and utterly silent, save for the rhythmic beeping of machines that seemed to mock my fading life. I lay there, a fragile, withered leaf on the brink of falling, watching the ceiling tiles blur as my vision dimmed. When the nurses called, my children, the ones who had promised to be my strength, never answered. They left me there, gasping for every precious breath, convinced I was merely fading away, utterly, profoundly alone. Each cough felt like a hammer blow to my chest, each tremor a step closer to the abyss. The doctor's hushed tones, the concerned glances, they all confirmed it, this was it. My final curtain call. And the silence from my own blood was deafening, a chilling testament to their indifference. I felt no anger then, just an overwhelming, soul-crushing sadness that my life, after so much love and sacrifice, would end like this, utterly unmourned by those who mattered most. Between the haze of pain and the encroaching darkness, a horrifying clarity began to pierce through. It wasn't a dream, it was a brutal, undeniable awakening. In those moments, hovering on the precipice of eternity, I saw them. Not my loving children from the old photographs, but their true selves, cold, calculating, driven by a hunger I never understood. I saw their dismissive glances, their hurried excuses, the way their eyes always drifted to the house, the possessions, the inheritance. It was a revelation so stark, so utterly devastating, that it ripped through the last vestiges of my denial. The thought of them inheriting everything, the very fruits of my labor and love, after abandoning me to die. It was a monstrous injustice, and suddenly a fierce, burning defiance ignited deep within my fading spirit. My passing would not be their triumph. Oh no, not this time. Death, it seemed, had offered me a choice, a final, unexpected twist in my tragic tale. It didn't take everything, it gave me a purpose. A cunning, unyielding purpose. As my body fought for life, my mind, sharp and clear despite the pain, began to meticulously craft a plan. Every slight, every abandonment, every moment of cold indifference flashed before my eyes, fueling a resolve so potent it felt like liquid fire in my veins. I remembered Evelyn, a lawyer friend of a friend, someone I'd met years ago. Her sharp mind, her unwavering resolve. If I survived this, when I survived this, she would be the first person I called. The will, the very thing they craved, would become my instrument of justice. My legacy would not be theirs to squander. It would be a testament to a life lived, a lesson painfully learned, and a final, undeniable statement. Lying in that sterile hospital bed, every fiber of my being clawing its way back from the brink, I was no longer the same woman who had been left to die. My survival wasn't just a miracle. It was a defiant roar, a thunderclap in the quiet storm of their expectations. The doctors, they called it resilience. I called it pure, unadulterated spite, fueled by a purpose forged in the very jaws of death. The moment I could sit up, the very first thing I did, with a trembling hand but a steady resolve, was to call Evelyn, my lawyer, the woman I had thought of in my darkest hour. Her voice, calm and professional, was like a balm to my soul, a promise of the justice I so desperately craved. I told her everything, every agonizing detail of the abandonment, every chilling moment of their indifference. And then, with an almost giddy sense of power, I told her about the will, the one they were so eagerly waiting for. We started working meticulously, strategically, to rewrite their future, my future, and their well-deserved reckoning. Just as the ink was drying on the new documents, as the whispers of my unexpected survival began to spread, they appeared. Oh, they appeared all right. Like vultures drawn by the scent of what they believed was freshly deceased. My two children, Sarah and Michael, along with their polished, calculating spouses, marched into my hospital room. They wore expressions of manufactured concern, forced smiles that didn't quite reach their cold eyes. Mother. We were so worried. Sarah chirped, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness, while Michael offered a stiff, uncomfortable hug. It was nauseating. Absolutely, utterly nauseating. They brought wilting flowers, muttered platitudes, and nervously glanced around the room, no doubt assessing if I was truly back on my feet enough to discuss. Well, you know, the will. I simply watched them, a ghost of a smile playing on my lips. They had no idea the game had already changed, and I had a front row seat to their downfall. Evelyn was already there, a silent, formidable presence beside my bed, her gaze piercing through their flimsy facade. And then the moment came, the moment of truth. The air in the room crackled with a tension thicker than blood. Evelyn, with her signature calm, professional demeanor, cleared her throat. Now that Mrs. Thompson is fully recovered, and with all parties present, she wishes to make a formal statement regarding her last will and testament. Sarah gasped dramatically. Michael shifted impatiently. Their eyes gleamed with anticipation. Oh, the sweet, sweet irony. Evelyn began to read, her voice clear and unwavering, detailing my assets, my properties, my entire legacy. And then she dropped the bomb. Not a penny. Not a single, solitary penny was left to Sarah, or Michael, or their spouses. The silence that followed was deafening, a vacuum where their greedy expectations had just been annihilated. Their faces, once carefully composed, contorted into masks of disbelief, then shock, then pure, unadulterated fury. "What?" Michael shrieked, his face turning a furious shade of purple. Sarah's jaw dropped, her eyes wide with horror, as if she'd just seen a ghost, or rather, lost a fortune. This inheritance, the very fortune they had abandoned me for, the one they believed was their birthright after leaving me to die, was now legally, irrevocably, designated to an entirely different purpose. The Phoenix Foundation, a charity dedicated to supporting elderly individuals abandoned by their families. Their carefully constructed world, built on my supposed death, crumbled right before their very eyes. The shock quickly morphed into a furious, guttural rage. "You can't do this," Sarah screamed, stamping her foot like a spoiled child. "This is our money, our inheritance." Michael stormed towards me, his face contorted with venom. "You manipulative old witch. You're insane," but I just looked at them. Truly looked at them for the first time in years, without fear, without sadness, only with a profound, icy calm. "Too late," I whispered, my voice raspy but clear. "It's all too late." The words hung in the air, a final, unassailable truth. The tears in their eyes weren't of sorrow for me, but for the millions they had lost. The frantic calls to their own lawyers, the desperate, hollow apologies, the pleas for reconciliation. It was all just noise. Evelyn simply handed them copies of the new, legally binding will. My revenge wasn't loud, it was absolute. It wasn't about spite, it was about justice. And the satisfaction, oh, it was utterly, completely, divinely sweet. This wasn't just my will, it was my final, most powerful statement. And they, my dear children, had just been served. The ink was barely dry on that new will, and their initial shock had barely worn off before the storm of their fury truly broke loose. They couldn't accept it. My children, those self-proclaimed heirs, launched a full-scale legal assault, screaming about undue influence, about my deteriorating mental state, desperate to overturn what they saw as an unthinkable injustice. Phone calls became a barrage of threats, then desperate pleas, then manipulative attempts to reconcile, all thinly veiled attempts to get their hands on what they believed was theirs. Their lawyers, a slick, aggressive bunch, flooded Evelyn's office with motions and subpoenas. They tried every trick in the book, pulling out every dirty tactic they could muster. But Evelyn, bless her formidable heart, was always 3 steps ahead. She meticulously countered every accusation, every desperate maneuver, her unwavering resolve a solid wall against their greedy onslaught. It was exhausting, utterly draining, but I stood firm. I had faced death. This was merely a petty squabble for greed. But despite their relentless, almost comical efforts, the truth, backed by Evelyn's steel-trap legal mind, stood unassailable. The court battles were long, arduous, and frankly, utterly depressing, revealing the true depths of their entitlement. We went through discovery, depositions, every painful detail of their abandonment laid bare for legal record. Their arguments, built on flimsy lies and manufactured outrage, crumbled under Evelyn's precise cross-examination. And when the final gavel fell, when the judge's clear, unequivocal voice pronounced the will legally binding, dismissing their every claim. Oh, the look on their faces. It was priceless. Pure, unadulterated defeat, mixed with a chilling, dawning horror as they realized the full, irreversible extent of their loss. They had gambled everything on my death, gambled on my weakness, and they had lost. Utterly. Completely. This wasn't just a legal victory, it was a profound, deeply satisfying affirmation of my chosen justice. And as word of the court's decision, and the scandalous details of my children's actions inevitably began to leak, the town, and perhaps even the wider world, began to whisper. My story, once a private agony, started to become a public spectacle. There were the hushed tones in the grocery store, the sympathetic glances from strangers, the indignant stares from those who knew my children. Some distant relatives, whom I hadn't heard from in years, suddenly reached out. Some with genuine shock and apologies, others with thinly veiled curiosity, wondering about the scandal and the lost fortune. The local newspaper even did a small piece, though Evelyn quickly shut down anything too intrusive. It was a strange sensation, being seen not just as a grieving widow or a victim, but as a symbol. A symbol of resilience, of a stand against pure, unadulterated greed. It proved that in the end, justice, in its own quiet way, can prevail. But the fight, the emotional toll of it all, was immense. And I knew, despite the victory, I still had a journey of deep healing ahead. With the legal battles finally behind me, and the bitter taste of their defeat still fresh in my memory, a strange, quiet peace began to settle over my life. It wasn't an instant fix, mind you. The wounds were still there, deep and raw, but the constant battle was over, and I could finally, truly breathe. I started simply. Small steps. Rediscovering the world outside the confines of that painful past, finding joy in the most unexpected, humble moments. I began taking long walks in the local park, simply watching the seasons change, feeling the sun on my face. I'd spend hours at the library, not just for solace, but to immerse myself in stories of resilience, of human spirit overcoming impossible odds. Every quiet moment, every simple pleasure felt like a small victory, a tiny act of defiance against the darkness that had tried to consume me. My spirit, once so barren, began to slowly, tenderly, rediscover its capacity for hope and simple contentment. I'd thought I was destined to die alone, isolated by betrayal. But life, in its infinite, surprising grace, had other plans. It introduced me to a new kind of family, woven from shared laughter and genuine kindness. Through quiet community events, or simply by being open, I started connecting with people. People who saw me, not the heartbroken victim, not the scorned mother, but the woman beneath the scars, the survivor, the individual. There was Mrs. Davies, my kind next-door neighbor, who'd bring me a cup of tea and just sit quietly, understanding without needing words. And then there were the volunteers at the Phoenix Foundation, the very charity my inheritance was now dedicated to. Working with them, seeing their genuine compassion for others in similar situations, filled a void I hadn't even realized was so vast. These weren't just acquaintances, they were lifelines. Their genuine warmth, their unwavering support, formed a bond stronger than any bloodline could ever promise. This was what true connection felt like. This was belonging, a belonging earned, not taken for granted. Of course, the ghosts of the past didn't just vanish into thin air. There were still nights the phantom fear would grip me, moments a memory of their cold indifference would pierce through the fragile calm. but I was no longer afraid to face them. I found immense solace in quiet reflection, in journaling my thoughts, in seeking guidance from a compassionate counselor who helped me gently unpack years of trauma, the betrayal, the deep-seated pain. It was a slow, agonizing process, peeling back layers of hurt, but with each session I felt a little lighter, a little more whole. I was learning to forgive, not them, perhaps never them for what they did, but myself. For staying silent for too long, for not seeing the signs. And in that profound act of self-forgiveness, I found a freedom, a sense of peace that transcended anything I had ever known. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was truly, genuinely living, building a life of purpose, a legacy of kindness, one peaceful day at a time, far from the shadows of their greed. My world, once a suffocating cage built from fear and betrayal, had finally burst open. It was now expanding, vibrant and boundless, filled with new perspectives I never thought I'd see again, new friendships that felt like family, and a profound sense of purpose. Today, I am not just surviving. I am truly, profoundly living, embracing every single day with gratitude and a fierce, quiet joy. My days are now filled with meaningful connections, with volunteering at the Phoenix Foundation, seeing firsthand the lives my legacy is touching, the comfort it brings to others who suffered as I did. Each smile, each shared story of hope from those we help, is a testament to the new life I'm building, a life dedicated to kindness and compassion. My spirit, once so barren, is now a garden flourishing with peace, a garden tended with gentle hands that once felt so empty. This is not just peace, it's a profound contentment, a quiet triumph. This journey, my raw, honest, and terrifying journey, is more than just a tale of loss and betrayal. It's a powerful, undeniable testament to the indomitable human spirit, a beacon of hope forged in the darkest night. It's a profound, unwavering reminder that no matter how deep the betrayal, no matter how profound the loss, no matter how chillingly cold the indifference, you can, and you will, find your way back to yourself. You can rebuild, you can heal, and against all odds, you can find profound joy, true purpose, and lasting peace again. It's a long, arduous climb, yes, filled with tears and doubts, but the view from the top, from this place of peace and strength, is breathtaking beyond words. My past doesn't define me anymore. It's simply a chapter, a painful but ultimately empowering one, in the much larger, much more beautiful book of my life that I am now writing, one purposeful day at a time. I chose not to let bitterness consume me, but to transform my pain into a legacy of light. If you've listened to my story today, if it's touched your heart, if it's ignited even a tiny spark of recognition or hope within you, then my sharing this was worth every single painful memory it resurfaced. Please, please don't suffer in silence. Your voice matters, your story matters. There are people who care, people who will listen, and people who will help you find your way out of your own darkness. Reach out. Take that first, terrifying step. Because you are not alone, and you deserve a life filled with light and love, just like I found. This is my truth, and I hope it gives you the courage to find yours. And now, I have one last message, a heartfelt plea for all of you. And if my story resonated with you, if it offered even a flicker of comfort or strength, please, do me a huge favor. Smash that like button right now. It truly helps my story, and this message of resilience, reach more people who desperately need to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'm committed to sharing more raw, honest stories of survival, healing, and the beautiful, messy journey of reclaiming one's life, right here with you. Please share this video with anyone you think needs to hear this message of hope and strength. And most importantly, I want to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below. What was the most surprising part of my journey for you? What does resilience mean in your life? Let's build a community of support, of understanding, right here, where no one ever has to feel truly alone. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening. Thank you for being here.